Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the White Up Podcast. We are on the 15th episode. I am your inaugural BWDU World Heavyweight Champion, Ace Reed, and right now I am going to interview a man that's been a law of the land. He is currently the XCW Money in the Bank briefcase winner. He is the current Anarchy champion and recently had a YBW World Heavyweight Championship match against ATK. And not to mention that he is also, I believe, the 10th member of the Sports Y Radio Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here with the law of the land, Jackson Law, or Captain Law, whatever the hell you want to call him. He goes by many nicknames, but either way, we're still interviewing the same person. So, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing a great. How the weather here is ass. How is it over there in Aussie land?
Same over here, to be honest. Same over here. Anyways, not to waste any more time, but we'll get into, obviously, the first question that I've asked every other guest, and I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of what question I'm going to ask you, and that is, what got you into backyard wrestling?
Genuinely, it was watching backyard wrestling. I've always loved wrestling, and I didn't really know backyard wrestling existed outside of GTS. I started watching GTS, and then a little recommended pop up under GTS for TBW. And I watched TBW, and TBW led me to EBW when they were working with Lake Lewis and his Fed. And that's really what made me want to do it. And then obviously me and my cousin both doing YouTube at the time. And it was during that whole weird era where everybody was dish tracking one another and doing YouTube boxing matches and shit, when it was real popular at the beginning. So me and my cousin decided to be original. And instead of doing a boxing match, we did all these dish tracks that led up to a wrestling match. And we had a title for it. We just used the WWE title. And there was a little bit of a story to it and everything else. And then when we were done with that, we decided we liked doing it and decided to start our own Fed. And then it just went from there.
Oh, that sounds good. I mean, yeah, most people start off backyard wrestling, off of either like GTS, ESW, or CHW. It's either one of those three federations that always get people to be a part of it. Anywho, we're going to talk about your most recent match, I believe, which is, I believe it was the XCW Money in the Bank match. Am I correct?
I've had a few since then, especially for XCW. The Money in the Bank match was back at Halloween Harvest in October.
Okay.
So I've had at least two more XCW matches since then for November and December when we filmed Encounters. Most recently, XCW-wise, I wrestled Brogan O'Shea at Encounters for the EBW Championship. Came out on the losing end of that one. And on the other side for Captain Law, my most recent match to drop would have been the match with ATK at Revelations.
Okay. And actually, speaking of the devil, here he is. ATK is currently watching this interview. Let's go say hi to a few people. Also, g'day to Asura, that's a part of BWDU. Hope that shoulder is doing better. When you post on a match, now this is because we recently started our Patreon, and this is our first subscriber. It's currently 2 a.m, actually 3 a.m. now. So your match will be posted very soon. And the Outspoken t-shirt, I'm assuming that's an inside joke with you and ATK.
So the Outspoken, if I showed you the back of the shirt, but I'd have to stand up for that. And yeah, it's too early in the morning to stand up.
Fair enough.
Even more so for you. The back of the shirt says hated for headlining. This was mine and Aaron Blaze's tag team. We were the Outspoken. So
okay. Actually, let's scratch the XCW Money in the Bank match aside. We'll talk about that after we talk about your run in YBW. Now, you had a world title match against ATK, which I got to say, that was a good match. Props to you and ATK for that. You're welcome.
There was a lot of story going into that match.
Yeah, it was. I was watching the build up to it, and it was pretty good. I can't lie. And obviously, by the thumbnail of the Wide Up podcast, you've held 2 YBW belts, and that was the Tag Team Championships, I'm assuming, with Aaron Blaze.
No, I actually beat Aaron Blaze to win the tag team titles.
Ah.
I came out as Kid Phoenix's mystery partner. On the same show, I won the hardcore title. I believe it was Anarchy Sanctum. Came in at Anarchy Sanctum, won the hardcore title. Or no, Anarchy Sanctum's where I lost the title, I think. I don't remember exactly. I think I either won it at Anarchy and lost it at Breakdown, or won it at Breakdown and lost it at Anarchy. The which one is which kind of gets flipped after a little bit.
I get what you mean, but yeah. But let's talk about your YBW run thus far. How did you think it went, and is there anything that you could have done better? And what would you do if you did win the YBW World Heavyweight Championship against ATK?
Obviously, if I won the YBW World Heavyweight Championship, I'd still be, holding it because nothing else is dropped, at least not with me in it. My last filmed thing was the match with ATK. I went out there for a 2-day taping because a Pennsylvania trip for me is 12 hours away. So I went to Pennsylvania. It wasn't my first time out there. I think it was my 3rd, 4th trip out there, but this was the first time I actually filmed any kind of wrestling because I usually just went out there when I went on vacation to Maryland. And we got the 2 days filming done. It was my first time wrestling ATK. We did the KTW stuff. It was a very enjoyable taping. Eamon's mom makes really good spaghetti and meatballs. Like it was really good, especially after a day of taping. We watched the Royal Rumble because if that tells you when all of that was filmed, the Royal Rumble went live, and we had a watch party in the basement and watched the Royal Rumble during that taping. And it was a fun taping. Obviously some tension was built between certain people. But my entire point to go out to YBW was 3 years in the making. 3 years ago, I was promised a hardcore title run, and it never got filmed. I went out there and I lost the UAW World title to Aaron Blaze, and we never got to film the hardcore title stuff for me because it was supposed to be this crossover style thing where he wins one of my titles, I come in, win one of his titles, and then we have the big blow off at the end. And it just never got to happen. So when I came back out with the knowledge of a different storytelling ability. And I took the story Eamon wanted me to tell, and I put my own spin on it and kind of threw my own ideas in promo-wise, like the promo where he has ATK sign the contract for Revelations, and he's like, I'm going to find you an opponent, and we're going to figure it out. And I sneak up behind them and sign my name on the contract, which is what got me the match against ATK at Revelations, was my idea. That promo was mine. Because Eamon wanted a way to do a contract signing, but wanted to do it differently than just a normal contract signing because there was no build for me to be ATK's opponent except the attacks where I had been attacking him. And it was weird for me to do the attack seeing as how I was supposed to come in as babyface. But he had me doing the attacks and everything, had me do the surprise attack at Heatwave. And it was a little weird for me to be doing the attacks but being the babyface, but ATK had been built up all year as this big heel. He was part of the United Front. He's the heel world champion. And my entire story was I'm Eamon's tag team partner outside of YBW, and ATK is his partner in YBW. Which side is he going to pick? And my entire story going into that match was I was sneaking around behind Eamon's back to get this world title match. But at the same time, I was playing the good guy on screen and having him and trying to make him pick a side. That's why I'm the one that gifted him the referee shirt. I'm the one that had him be the referee in the match, which if you watch the match ended up costing me the match, him being the referee. But overall, the Revelations 4 story, the entire build-up, that entire build, me attacking him, winning the hardcore title, having Blaze by my side after I win the hardcore title, taking the tag titles from Blaze, which is another thing, because I've never beaten Aaron Blaze one-on-one. In singles action, I have never beaten him. I've only ever beaten him in tag team matches. So taking the tag titles from him, that's another touch to the story. And then now Aaron Blaze had to decide Outspoken or United Front. And that's the story we were telling the entire Revelations build. And then the taping for Revelations. My match was the first Revelations match filmed, because we obviously had to get everything we could get filmed with me there while I was there. And we still didn't get everything filmed that I was supposed to do, because I was supposed to have a world title run. And they also have another title that never debuted that one of the side characters from my show was supposed to win. And we didn't get it filmed either because of time constrictions. So there was still more for me to do out there, but I never got around to making time to go back out there. And there was never really a chance for me to get back out there to finish that. And now with that line of communication not open between me and Aaron Blaze anymore, can't really get back out there to do it again, which is fine with me. That 12-hour drive is so taxing. The one thing I'm going to miss about trips to Pennsylvania is the Sheets. Because like there's a gas station in that area called Sheets, and it's like this restaurant gas station thing, and the food is so good. So good.
Yeah, I bet it would. I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting the twist with Aaron Blaze betraying you and then ATK betraying Blaze. Like, it was a whole thing. I think that's what twisted.
For Shoots, the turn on Blaze, like the turn on me was planned before the match. The turn on Blaze was an audible Blaze called on the fly, because it was planned to happen, but it wasn't planned to happen then.
Yeah.
But the story was there for it to happen then. So when they're all posing and taunting and doing their Undisputed Era taunt, you see Blaze kind of look over and say something to each of them, and that's him telling them to get ready to do the attack. And if you notice during the attack, it's not something they talked about on commentary or anything. After they beat the fuck out of me, I'm laying there, I'm laid out, but they start to attack Eamon, and I try and protect him. Because even though he turned on me, he's still my tag team partner. So I was still trying to protect him, because the story I was going to tell afterwards was, even though he turned on me, I understood it from a business point of view, and I was willing to let it go, and we could still be tag team partners elsewhere, because business is business and friendship is friendship. So I was going to let it slide, and I was going to be the guy that helped him. And in CBW, I was going to have him continue to go towards the Genesis title. And when he ended up winning it, I was going to be his muscle. I was going to be the Wardlow to his MJF. And I was going to let him push me and push me and push me until I finally snapped. And that entire buildup of him turning on me and him pushing me and belittling me because he kept losing, even though I was trying to help him win, or he couldn't win without my help, was going to cause him to snap on me. And then that's when I was going to turn and become the baby face, and me and him were going to have that one-on-one feud with a different level of storytelling. And unfortunately, things have happened since then. And that, again, like I said, that line of communication just isn't open between me and him anymore. And some will say it's my fault, some will say it's his fault, but either way, you know, we both acted a little more immaturely than we should have, given the situation. But that line of communication isn't open, and I don't ever see myself going back to Pennsylvania. And if I do, it won't be for YBW.
I mean, at least before that whole controversy, at least you got to face some opponents that you've never faced before, like ATK, for an example.
Well, yeah.
So at least that's something that works out.
Part of why I went out there was to wrestle people I had never wrestled before and get to face people like ATK and Dominic. And people have asked me why I went out there and wasted my time with people that would be considered less than. And it's because I want that experience of wrestling people in different atmospheres and environments. I've never wrestled on just pads and tarps. I've always had something, a platform or just the ground or a ring. Like I went out to NGJPW and they had the tires and pallets and plywood on as a platform instead of a ring. I wrestled other places that have rings. I used to wrestle on the ground, but they just had the tarps and the pads on the ground. And it was it was the YBW I had watched growing up that I had helped with behind the scenes.
Mm.
So getting to wrestle ATK and getting to wrestle Dom and in my opinion, and maybe this is me bragging a little bit, pull the best match out of Dominic that you can get. And I think with the ATK match at Revelations, I have the best match in YBW history. The level of storytelling, the actual back and forth wrestling, the pure wrestling ability that I pulled out of ATK. Because if you watch a lot of ATK matches, there's a lot of shaky stuff.
Yeah.
But you watch his match with me, and everything he was doing was crisp for the most part. There were a couple slip ups, but those happen when you're wrestling on a tarp and you trip and shit. But everything I was pulling out of him looked great. And I don't know. I know the Backyard Wrestling Observer rated it a 3 stars, but that match, in my opinion, is the best YBW match to ever happen. And you can ask ATK; it's his favorite match he's ever had in YBW, and that's pissed certain people off that's his favorite match. But when you go out there and you tell the story we told and you had the level of match we did, it felt like a pay-per-view match. We went out there and we had that big show match. And that's what I was going for. I was going out there to put people over and make people out there look the best that I could do with the experience I have wrestling elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that that was probably the best YBW match I've seen. I'm sure ATK would agree upon that too. I mean, he did post on his story on Instagram his top 10 favorite matches, and the number 1 spot obviously was you versus him. Let's get to a few comments that we've been meaning to get to. Will you post it today? Yes, we will. Dan Brookshire, we will post your Patreon match. And HK calling you out, saying it was SummerSlam instead of Royal Rumble.
Was it SummerSlam? I could have swore it was the Rumble.
I mean,
it may have been. I don't know. I've slept a lot since then and gotten hit in the head. Sheets. That's an inside joke.
Is Missing Boy returning back? Maybe. That's a mask character that we use. Anyways, we've talked about your YBW run so far. Let's talk about your XCW Money in the Bank briefcase match. Now, you went up against Evan Phoenix, Eric Mason, Onyx, Hayden Vex, and Corey Lee. And yes, I am reading this off of a device. I can't remember all those names, but
trust me, it took me a minute to remember everybody that was in that match too. It's okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. Oh, Jay Ellis was in there too. I forgot about him.
Yeah, but let's talk about that ladder match. How did you think you went into that match? Were you expecting to win the briefcase, or?
Obviously, like if you go and you watch my match with ATK at Overcome, the promo me and him had back and forth, he said that was the worst Money in the Bank in company history. I can both agree and disagree because I've been in 2 Money in the Bank matches now. I was in this year's and then I was in last year's too. And I got close to winning last year's only for Evan Phoenix to win. And this year I climbed the ladder, knocked Jay Ellis off, and won the Money in the Bank briefcase. It wasn't something I expected to have happen, but being able to win the briefcase, I feel like a lot of faith is instilled with me as a wrestler holding the briefcase because, again, you have that briefcase. You can cash in anywhere and anytime and any way you want to. And I've only ever won one other briefcase match. And it wasn't a ladder match. It was a one-on-one match at NGJPW WrestleFest. And I won the Lucky Shot briefcase. And I never got to cash it in because NGJPW shut down. and Division Nick has gone pro, so he's not filming stuff for NGJPW anymore. So I never got to make good on that, but I'll be damned if I don't get to make good on my XCW briefcase.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, you never had the opportunity for how do I pronounce it again?
NGJPW. It's a
It's
lot of letters. It's a lot of letters.
Actually, now we're at the topic. Speaking of federations, you have wrestled how many companies?
25.
25. Pretty much too many to count. I mean, you're one of the top backyard wrestlers out there, and you've wrestled at a lot of places. You've wrestled at ROEW, NGJPW, YBW, XCW. Too many to count, pretty much. But
way too many.
Out of all of those 25 federations that you have worked for, which one is your favorite to work with and be a part of?
XCW.
XCW?
Through and through. It's the place I call home. They've given me the training that let me go out to these other places and become that guy that people know by name now in this community. Like, I don't brag. I don't toot my own horn. Like, you can ask a lot of people and you'll get 5 different answers about the kind of person I am. But I'm humble enough to admit I sucked so bad starting this. Like, when I was wrestling on the ground, I didn't know a headlock from a wrist lock. And now I can go out there and I can have matches with some of the best people in this community, like Jason Storm, like Jack Delta, like Fletch, like Corey Lee, like Hunter Houken, like Eric Mason. I can go out there with anybody and find something good to do with them. Like, Dominic from YBW is not a good wrestler, but I went out there and we had a really entertaining match on their Christmas special. Like, I can go out there now and put on a match with just about anyone and it be something that someone will like. Maybe not everybody, but somebody will like it. And that is purely because of the training and the learning I've got from XCW. They're the first company I wrestled with that had a ring. They're the ones that really gave me that opportunity to shine and let me learn under some of the best people they have. And I got pulled under that learning tree, and then I took that learning and went to UWA with it, and ROEW, and IMF, and OMW, and all these other places that have rings. And it really helped me be able to expand out. Because if I didn't have that training from them, if I didn't have the know-how that they showed me how, and I went and wrestled in all these companies, it would look like hot garbage.
Yeah, I mean, XCW is quite a place to work with. I mean, I've seen some of their stuff and I've easily impressed, to be honest. I mean, that's probably the case for what most people think of XCW, but ATK said that he has learned a lot from wrestling you. That's what he says. But
hi. Animals, ladies and gentlemen.
Animals. Anyways, moving aside from that. So throughout the 25 companies, and you've probably wrestled more than 100 matches now, to be honest.
I used to keep count. I can't anymore.
Too many to count?
Yes, way too many.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously throughout the matches you have wrestled a lot of opponents, and a lot of opponents comes obviously different levels of experience in wrestling wise. Now let's talk about, actually, instead of naming your favorite person that you've wrestled, let's name the top 3. So out of everyone that you have wrestled throughout your backyard wrestling career, who are the top 3 opponents that is your favorite to work with?
I'm going off of the last year and not anything before that, because anything before that wasn't really wrestling. I'm going to give you my top 5, because narrowing it down to 3 is way too hard.
All right, we'll go off top 5.
Not in any particular order, by the way, because rating these guys in order of who I enjoyed wrestling more or less would be very difficult. Jack Delta, Hunter Houken, Fletch, Jason Storm, and it's weird. I'm struggling to find a fifth one. Kurt Adams. Those are probably the top five that I've worked with, got to wrestle with. Wrestling Fletch, I mean, I'm wrestling a guy who had 20 years of experience, and other than the one match we had, everything else we did together was really good. Same thing with Hunter Houken. Everything we did together, minus a couple spots in one match, was really good. Every match I've had with Jack Delta has been amazing. I can't look back at any of those matches and be disappointed. Same thing with Jason Storm. Me and Jason Storm, every match we've had has been brilliantly told storytelling wise, except for that one goofy ass match we did in CBW where I'm throwing people's elbows and he's talking to ring posts. He's a crazy motherfucker, but wrestling Hunter Houken, it was a perfect example of me being the big man, him being the little man. Like he let me throw him around. He let me be the big man. And that's something that I love being able to do. I love being the big guy that can do things I shouldn't be able to do. Like a guy my size should not be able to move the way I move. And my body hates me for it sometimes, but a close sixth would be ATK. And it's weird because I've only wrestled him 3 times, and most of them I can look back on and not be too happy about. But there was something in the air when we filmed that Revelations match that I just look back on and I watch and I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do that with some of my matches too, to be honest. Like, example, with me and Striker at Final Countdown, I look back at it as well, and I just thought that match was definitely something.
How is
But
Striker to work with? Is he good to work with?
he is professional. Professional. Yes. And speaking of Striker, I will be going up against him at the next ETW pay-per-view for the FWA World Championship. So everyone wish me luck. Hopefully I win. Hopefully it won't be a draw this time.
Yeah,
But
beat his ass.
yeah, thank you. But yeah, we've talked about obviously your favorite federation to work with, your favorite opponents to work with, but one thing we haven't talked about is your favorite matches. Now, what would be your favorite match and your least favorite match throughout your career?
Favorite match. Again, I'm going to go off the last year because I could sit here and run down 1,000 of my matches that I had before 2023 and late 2022 that were god awful. Ow! Fucking cat. Sorry. Cat just stabbed me. And favorite match I had in 2023. Either me versus Hunter Houken at XCW. I don't remember the show off the top of my head. I think it was Adrenaline. No, Adrenaline's way old. It was the first show me and Hunter Houken did where it was the first show I wrestled him, threw him off the ropes, hit the tilt-a-whirl into the gavel driver. And that is by far one of my favorite matches I've ever had in history. Yeah, that's probably my favorite match I've had. Right next to me versus ACT from XCW Overcome. Like ACT's not the greatest of wrestlers, but he's another one of those examples of you can put him with someone good and he'll have a good match. It won't be a one-sided contest. It'll be something good from both of them. And me and him went out there in my second main event in XCW, and me and him tore the house down. Like we had people literally on the edge of their seats standing up by the end of the match. And that was something special for me.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. But let's talk about your least favorite match now. Now, obviously, like you said, you've had a lot of quite bad matches, but is there like one that particularly stands out?
So last year, if you find the pictures, because I don't know if the footage of the match has released, or pray to God it never fully releases. But there's pictures of it, which is why it's counted on my list, because I have photographic evidence that I was out there and did something with them.
Mm.
I went out to Fort Wayne, Indiana for FWL Future Wrestling Legends, and I wrestled a guy who hadn't had a match in 2 years. His name's Frankenstein, and he's their world heavyweight champion, and he hadn't had a match in 2 years. I wrestled him in a dark match, and it was bar none, unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, the absolute worst match I have ever taken part in. I was trying my hardest to make this guy look good. There was nothing I could do. He didn't give me anything. He wouldn't let me hit a move. He stiffed the fuck out of me. Like, no matter what I did was wrong. He shot kicked out of the finish and tried to shoot pin me. Like, it was so bad that the entire 2-hour ride home from Fort Wayne to Shelbyville, I was sitting in the car seething. Like, I was professional there, but like once I left, I was pissed. I was riding with Fletch, Jacoby, and Festus, because we all went out there to do some work with them to build for Fletch versus JJ Kelty, because FWL is JJ Kelty's company, for Halloween Harvest. And by God, was it the worst match I have ever had. Ever.
Even worse than your first backyard wrestling match?
No, nothing's that bad.
Okay, well, fair enough then. Now, ATK said it's a good thing that you didn't face Oliver Blade.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have been very professional with that one. He's a shithead of the highest degree, and all it would have taken is one fuck up for me to lose it. And it's not easy to piss me off. But Oliver Blade doesn't listen. He won't listen to a word anybody says. He thinks he's the top shit. He thinks his shit doesn't stink. Like, Oliver Blade has pissed on my Wheaties a time or two, and I'm really glad he wasn't a part of the company when I went out there, because I'd have been as professional as I could be in the match, and it would have taken probably one or two fuck ups for me to just snap and lose it. And it's not easy to piss me off in a match at all. You can stiff the fuck out of me. You can piss me off. You can ask ATK. I wasn't shitty when Eamon kneed me square in the face and almost broke my nose.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like we're doing the tag team match, and they kick my leg out, and Eamon hits me with a God's Last Gift, which is like a pump knee strike or a V trigger. And it's audible how loud he hits me. And he'll tell you it was just the thigh slap and that he didn't hit me that hard. I was seeing white.
Wow, really?
And that's only ever happened in one other match. And it's when I got kicked square in the side of my head because I didn't cover up right for an enziguri. He hit me so hard, I was seeing white. I rolled over and checked my nose because it felt like my nose was bleeding. I thought he had full on broke my nose. And even then, I didn't snap until after the camera was off, and I didn't even snap on him. I just got really, really heated and walked away and kept my cool and let shit roll, because that's what you have to do in this hobby or business or whatever you call it. You can be as pissed off as you want to be with somebody, but at the end of the day, it's a show, and if it looked good, that's what matters. And if you stiff the fuck out of somebody 9 out of 10 times, it looks good.
Yeah. I mean, at least you were professional about it. That's what I can say. Because I've seen most people that have lost their cool and have gone upset over, like, the littlest stiff punches or whatever. But at least you were professional about it. And ATK saying that he has accidentally bruised your ribs. I'm assuming it was the match at Revelations 4?
Yep, it was during the Revelations match. He caught me with a stiff kick, And when I laid down to sell it, he did a sliding elbow drop. And when he does the sliding elbow drop, you can audibly hear me go because he's not that big, but when you focus all of that weight into one spot, it feels like a fucking Mack truck hitting you. And I was laying down, and I've had issues with my ribs before. I've had bruised ribs, like I've had fractured ribs. But he landed all of that weight right on my ribs. And when I got home and I, like, after the 12-hour drive back, took my shirt off, got in the shower, my entire side was black and blue.
Wow.
He got me good. And even then I didn't get pissed at him during that match. I think I gave him a little bit of a receipt in one, because up to that point I had told him to slow down already. And that's my cue. If you stiff me twice, I tell you to slow down. And if you give me a third, you get something back. It's just how you have to do it, because if not, no one's going to stop. And if they aren't listening to you to tell you when you tell them to slow down, you got to give them one. And I don't remember what my receipt was to ATK. I think it was when he had opened up for the chop, and I walked up and slapped the fuck out of him.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was probably the receipt.
Because I don't remember purposefully going harder on anything I did after that. So
wait, I think ATK was saying that the slap was the receipt.
Yep.
Was it when you slapped him in the face?
Yes.
Okay, I remember seeing that. I was like, holy shit, he actually slapped him.
Yeah,
and
well,
then,
I don't pull on my slaps anyway.
And then he said he returned one too.
Yes, he did, and his slap was weak as fuck. he slapped me like a bitch, but I bitch slapped him. But either way, the slaps looked good on camera. So
yeah, that's what matters the most. But yeah, obviously we're into a new year. 2023 has been quite a controversial year for just backyard wrestling in general, but let's hope 2024 will be an even better year, and hopefully it's a better year for all of us and our backyard wrestling careers. But I want to ask you, Captain Law, have you got anything planned or any goals that you would want to set for 2024?
Continue to retain the Anarchy Championship. I've held it for over 1,300 days at this point. But my main goal is to successfully cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase and capture whatever championship I cash it in on. Everybody assumes it's the world title, but you just never know.
You never know.
Any championship, anytime, anywhere. Other than that, I do have the goal of defending my OMW Universal Championship successfully, because I'm the OMW Universal Champion too. Like, I hold 2 championships in a month and 2 briefcases right now. One of the briefcases I can't do anything with. So I hold 2 championships in a briefcase right now. Nobody ever talks about the OMW Universal title. They act like that title win didn't happen. I beat Eclipse and Monoxide in the same night. There's a triple threat match, but I beat them both.
Yeah, that's what matters. You bet them both, and you won the Universal belt.
I held 4 championships at once, and no one said a damn word.
Wow. Kenny Omega over here.
Great.
But anyways, moving on. Actually, now that you mentioned earlier about your Anarchy Championship reign. Sorry, I keep on cutting off. Let's talk about your reign so far. You've held it for 1,300 days. I believe that is more days than Roman Reigns now.
I'm right there. Like, if I'm not above him, I'm like right below him. It's when I was out at IMF Winter Clash, it was 1,268 days. And I did the math afterwards, and that's how I found out how many days it was. And obviously that was December 16th. So you do the math from then to now. I'm not good at the maths. I may not even have hit the 300-day mark yet. I don't know. I just go with 1,300 days because it's the closest I can round up to and remember it. But originally I had won the Anarchy title because I was supposed to go out to Chicago for HCW Invasion, which was Nova's company, RIP Nova. But I couldn't go out there to film when he wanted me to, so he had me make an Anarchy Championship. And originally the Anarchy Championship that I made was supposed to be a birthday gift for him. And I made the title. I defended against my niece to win the title for the first time. And then I lost it to her on a fluke because one of Nova's characters' music hit on my show. She rolled me up. 1, 2, 3, and then we had a grudge match, and I won it back. And I've held it since then. And for a while, the title wasn't seen on screen or anything because I never made it to Chicago to drop the championship. So I never made it to Chicago to drop the title, and so I never did anything with it. And then for about a year, the title just kind of sat on my shoulder and didn't do anything with it. And then I defended it in a match for VCW in a match of forgotten Anarchy Championship matches. And then when he died and was taken from the world, I was messaged because I was the only remaining VCW champion that anybody could find. Like, you can contact our money and that stuff, but I was the only one that had a title. And I was already editing for Nova at one point and helping him write. So I got access to the channel, which I need to re-access. But I got access to the channel. And when I did that, I started VCW back up, which is the first time I've ever admitted on camera that I actually own VCW now too, as well as CBW. And I started defending the Anarchy title again. And I actually lost the title to Chase Sullivan. But when I got banned from the UWA arena, it made it very hard to film VCW stuff. So the general manager reversed the decision of the Anarchy title match and put the Anarchy title back on my shoulder and said I had never lost the match since Chase Sullivan wasn't under contract with VCW. So he couldn't win the championship. So therefore, I never lost the Anarchy title. Chase Sullivan destroyed the other Anarchy title, so I had to debuted a new one, and it was a piece of shit. So I had to re-debut another new one, and then that's the title I took with me to IMF and defended at Winter Clash against Casey Tempest. And that's kind of my shtick going forward now is if you see me in another Fed, I'm going to have the Anarchy title on my shoulder because I want to make that title as meaningful and as relevant as I can still, despite not really having anything to film with when it comes to VCW.
Yeah, no, I get what you're trying to go for, and I completely understand it.
Trying to keep Nova's Fed going, you know?
Yeah. I get it. I get what you mean. I mean, that's what we're doing for BEW at the moment. Even though it ended, we still got the world title going on, which is currently held by Jimmy Nash. That fucking prick. But moving aside from that, let's talk about the amount of titles that you have won. You've won too many championships to count, pretty much.
Tom Bryce will tell you it's over 40.
Over 4. There you go. Over 40. Actually, speaking about Thomas Bryce, you were the 10th member of the Sports Y Radio Hall of Fame. How did it feel when you got inducted?
It was something I was looking forward to, actually. It's weird because I had come on and opened that line of communication, or opened the door. I didn't say I opened the line of communication. I opened the door for there to be a line of communication between me and the owner, or between Sportswire and the owner of XCW, by being the first XCW guy to be on Sportswire. And as much as Tom Bryce hypes up XCW and stuff, I was hoping that at some point I would get the message of, hey, I want to put you in the Hall of Fame. And it didn't come in that way. It was more, hey, I want to be on the show again. And then it was like, I'd be remiss if I didn't put you in the Hall of Fame. So then I got inducted in it. It's really cool to me because for a long time, I thought Hall of Fames, when it came to backyard wrestling, were the most tacky shit imaginable. Because at the end of the day, who cares if you wrestle in a yard? But it actually means something to me. and it means more to me than I thought it would. And that's a big thing on my goal list, is to be in the XCW Hall of Fame, because XCW has a Hall of Fame. And if I do, I want to have a career worth the Hall of Fame.
I mean, you're proving your point as you are right now. I mean, you've won the Money in the Bank briefcase, and let's hope that when you cash it in, you will win whatever championship you cash in on. And I think that'll end your spot in a Hall of Fame. But yeah, anyways, continuing with what we were talking about, you have won over 40 championships in your backyard wrestling career. Which championship would be your most memorable, and which championship would you wish it could have gone a lot better than you wanted it to be?
Obviously, my most memorable would be the Anarchy title. If you think Captain Law, I've always bragged about being the longest reigning Anarchy champion and being the only Anarchy champion for 3 years, shit like that. But my most memorable one would be my first singles championship in XCW, and that was winning the international championship, pinning Fletch and taking the international title. Title win I wish I could win different would have been the XCW tag team titles. I came to XCW for the tag team division. That was what got me in the door, and that's what made me want to join XCW, because at the time, me and my cousin were supposed to be a tag team when we started training, and unfortunately, Nyko had work and couldn't make the commitment to be part of the roster for every taping and stuff. So it made it really hard to be a tag team with him. So it got scrapped, but I stuck around and ended up getting put into the story with Brady for the United States Championship and going forward. And after that story, I got put back in the tag team division with Jaden Tucker as law enforcement. And we won the tag team titles, but only held them for one show before we lost them to Hunter Houken and Fletch next show. So being able to do the tag team title run over again and maybe hold the titles for just a little bit longer would have been a little bit cooler. But the match I got out of only holding the tag team titles for one show and getting to do the street fight with Jaden Tucker actually made losing the titles in one show worth it in a way. But for me, the long-term character storytelling that I got from winning the tag team titles, losing them to Hunter Houken and Fletch, winning the international title from Fletch later that year, only to drop it to Hunter Houken again. In a way, for me, just long-term wise, the storytelling that it told my character of I win a championship and it's always Hunter Houken that makes me lose it just really hits different for me, because every championship I've held in XCW now, I've lost to Hunter Houken.
Yeah, I mean, we all wish that certain championship runs would go a lot better, but at least something turned out that was a part of it, which, turned out better than expected.
I try to find a silver lining in everything.
I get what you're trying to go for, yeah. But speaking of what we are talking about, which was your world championship reigns and the amount of companies that you've traveled to, I mean, that's why they call you the law of the land. What made you want to travel in the first place? What made you want to go to all these places for backyard wrestling? What made you want to have a different experience than you were originally going for?
Friendship. My first travel I ever did was to Pennsylvania. And it wasn't to wrestle. Like, it was to wrestle, but it wasn't to wrestle. I was to finally meet Aaron Blaze in person. It's a guy I'd talked to for years. Finally get to meet him in person. Kurt Adams had traveled to me for invading Indiana. And traveling him traveling to me made me want to travel out and get to meet these people that I had talked to or beefed with online. So I traveled to Pennsylvania. Then I started traveling to Tennessee. Then I traveled to Ohio. Then I traveled to Illinois. And over time, it became less about traveling for the friendships and more about traveling to get new experiences, wrestle new people, and doing something different everywhere. I try to make sure that if you've seen one Captain Law match, you haven't seen them all. Like, I try to do something different every single match to make myself stand out and be the guy that people want to look at and be like, I want to go there and wrestle him. And when you travel, it's a lot harder to be the guy that people are like, I want to go there and wrestle him, because you never know where there is. And that's why later of last year and this year, I'm not traveling as much. I'm not going and I'm not doing the traveling all that much, because I want people to want to come to XCW to wrestle me. And if out in ROEW or OMW, which are the only two I'm really doing anything with outside of XCW, I want people to come there to want to wrestle me, or my own Fed and CBW. I want people to come there to wrestle me. So doing the traveling, while it opened a lot of doors, gave me a lot of experiences that I wouldn't have elsewhere had, like winning the Southern Championship and being the first ever UWA Southern Champion, or wrestling JX and Jason Storm and Jacob Collins and Jake Howell and Aaron Blaze and ATK, and wrestling all those people I wouldn't have gotten to wrestle had I not traveled. The travel is just not a thing that my body, my car, my mind, my time, my money, my wallet can take much more of. Because when you're doing backyard wrestling, you're not really getting paid. Like, most of the time, people would help me with gas. Like, if I asked for gas monies, people would help. Like, when I went to TWF to wrestle Delta and finally get to meet Delta, that was the last traveling trip I did. That was like, I actually get to meet somebody that I talked to online for years and finally get to meet them. That was the last traveling trip I did when I wrestled him at Battle of the Summer. And getting to meet him was really cool, because now that there was that line of communication open between me and him, and we talked, became really cool friends and stuff. And actually, Kyle was like the last person I met through the yard that I really hadn't met, but I had known. And that was really cool to me. So being able to travel to TWF, like when I traveled out there, I didn't ask them for gas money. He offered it, which was amazing to me. And it really shows how cool Kyle is, because he didn't have to do that, because at the time he was a pizza delivery driver. Like, the money he had was tips. And he had to pull that out of his wallet to give it to me. That's not something he had to do. So it shows the heart that he has. And almost everywhere I've traveled to, if you ask him for gas money, 9 out of 10 times somebody on the roster will help you. But it's not something I try to do unless I absolutely have to. Because if it was about getting paid, I'd go and do the indies.
Yeah.
But it's never been about getting paid. It's about the experience. It's about networking, and it's about making friends and having fun. And the moment you lose that, and you lose that love and that passion for having fun and making friends, then you've lost your love for the hobby. And for a little while last year, I kind of lost my love for the hobby, and you saw some of my match quality go down and get to a point where I wasn't very happy with it. But then now, again, when I've like cooled off on the traveling and I'm just going out there and I'm not trying to be the guy, I'm just having fun and doing stuff and being the guy, it's made me love this hobby all over again.
Yeah, I mean, at certain times at our lives, we lose interest in certain things. And I think everyone that's a part of backyard wrestling is, at a certain time in their career, have lost their passion for it. But it's either you regain it or you just permanently lose it. And for some of us, we regain it. I mean, I wasn't too happy last year. I was trying to get a pay-per-view out that took 4 months and did a rescheduling. I wasn't happy anymore. Yep. But then I decided to come back, and now I'm in a better place than I am before, which is good. But I think this is about time we're going to wrap up this interview. But before I do, I want to ask you, Captain Law, well, obviously, thank you for coming on to this interview. Thank you for obviously saving your time for this, and
Well, thank you for
ATK
having me.
saying it was the same for him in 2021 when he lost his passion for backyard wrestling. Yes, exactly. I'm glad someone said it.
I think everybody at some point loses that love, loses that passion, and I think it's almost healthy for you to lose that love and lose that passion, because then it gives you the opportunity to find it again. It gives you the
Yeah.
chance to find a new reason to keep going. And my reason to keep going now is to be better, because the matches I watch when I was losing it a little bit, I look at them and I'm like, those don't hit the way I want them to, and I want people to be able to rewatch my matches. I preach about it. I preach about rewatchability and rewatch value, and it's something. It's the mantra I've kind of picked up from Delta of quality over quantity this year, and that is the mantra to go by this year. Not just all wrestling matters, but quality over quantity. If the stuff you're putting out isn't the quality you want it to be, work harder to make it the quality you want to be and become what you want people to see you as.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point. If you're not too happy with your matches, work harder and eventually you'll get to. I mean, the start of my career, I wasn't too good. I couldn't hit punches, but now look at me now. I'm hitting Canadian destroyers. But obviously, thank you for coming on to the Wired Up podcast. It does mean a lot. I'm sorry that it took a while to set everything up. I mean, I had to get extra sleep so I had energy for this interview. I mean,
There's a lot of time difference between us. It is okay.
yes. Yes, it is. It's a bit hard to work with, but you know, we managed to make it work. But
thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's all good. But before we end this interview, I'm going to ask one more question, and that question is, what is next for the Law of the Land?
XCW, baby. Just you keep your eyes open there. Obviously, you know, I'm holding the universal title for OMW. I'm the Anarchy champion. I'm the XCW Money in the Bank holder. You never know where I'm going to pop up, what I'm going to do. I've got a championship match in ROEW whenever I want it. It's not a briefcase, but it's a contract for a match whenever I want it, because I earned that title opportunity by beating Jacob Collins and Monoxide in a triple threat match. So there's always that. There's the universal title defended against whoever I'm slated to defend it against. XCW with the briefcase. You never know when I'm going to cash it and what I'm going to do with it. That's really the place to watch for me right now is XCW, because I got a feeling I'm going to have some interesting stuff coming up soon that people are going to want to watch.
Oh, everyone stay tuned for that. If you want to check out more of Captain Law, as he said here, will be on XCW. So make sure you go check out XCW where Captain Law is, and make sure you go check out Captain Law on Instagram. And make sure you go subscribe to our Patreon page. We have recently set that up. We are trying our best to make everything work, and I think at the moment we're doing a pretty good job at it. I am Ace Reed, the host of the Wired Up podcast, your inaugural BWD World Champion. It was a pleasure to have you on, Captain Law, and make sure you stay tuned for the next episode of the Wired Up podcast, everyone. I will be bringing back Jack Delta. He will be coming back onto the Wired Up podcast. If you
He follows me around. Every podcast I do, he's the next person on.
It's such a coincidence. I mean, it was like that for Sports Y Radio. But
crazy.
Make sure you go check out Captain Law on Instagram and on YouTube at XCW or OMW, wherever, because, I mean, he's just all around the place at this point. But everyone that is watching, Captain Law, take care. I'll see you on the next one.